So I've always been a very visual person, particularly in the workplace. And I was always that crazy guy in the corner who was sticking post-it notes on a wall when I was a developer. I was the one breaking the work down and visualizing everything that I do. And a lot of people used to think that was quite a crazy thing to be doing. And then probably about 2010, I discovered the Kanban Blue Book. And that was the point at which I realized I was actually normal.
Yeah, I don't think I will ever go back to lists. I mean, there are times the mechanisms aren't there to really, to put an effective Kanban together, but that's still how I'm thinking of it in my head. Because the list forces you into a linear approach, and it's just, are you working on it or not? You cross things off the list. You don't move things through different states. So lists they're not how I conceptualize work.
I got into Kanban from the theory of constraints. So back in the early 2000s, I was looking for ways to apply the theory of constraints to software development. And it was then when I found David Anderson's blog and later on his first book. And I started tracking his work, and I kind of naturally followed him into Kanban.
DevOps resonates with me so deeply because of all my years that I spent doing builds and configuration management centered between the engineering team and the operations team, helping people design their boards. I like to ask the question, where is support on this board? Where is maintenance on this board?
It was a project for us during my studies that to practice these things, compare these things, how Scrum is working in this specific project, how Kanban is working, how Waterfall is working, and do the compare and experience it by yourself first.
I'm really a researcher at heart. I love to explore new stuff, to understand the theory behind things. But on the other hand, I also want to understand the practice and make things practical and put things in practice. So it's exactly that combination that interests me. The crazy thing about it is that through Kanban in software and system development, I got to know Lean quite a bit, up to the point that now today one of the coaching assignments that I'm doing is actually in a logistics distribution center. So I'm going back to the roots.
I'm curious how these practitioners from the software industry or different organizations, how they are thinking or how they are contributing, how they are developing the next generation. And that comes from the academics. So now the question comes, how we are contributing to the scientific knowledge and how we are contributing to the software engineering curriculum about these things, because these are the future.
One of the things that really fascinates me is how do we do our work? How do we manage our work? How do we think about our work? How do we develop a shared sense of cognition so that we can understand what it is that we're doing and act more than the sum of the different parts, right? How do we come together in a broader whole? That, I think, is really interesting. And I think Kanban is an effective tool at doing that. It's the most powerful tool I've seen so far.
So I'm very excited about using Kanban to show how the health of the whole organization is doing, across the whole organization. How are we doing with respect to economic performance? How are we doing with our automation? How are we doing with cooperation? How are we doing with feedback? And so capturing that, but bringing visibility to to that kind of information, I think is key to taking a look at the big picture in order to break down that us-them wall.
Now I'm looking at the upstream activity. Some people call it portfolio Kanban. I tend to just call it upstream because the portfolio is not always the solution. Quite often, these value streams, we always look end to end in Kanban. And what I'm finding is that if you go upstream, you suddenly solve problems that you never realised you had. So again, it's a really good diagnostic tool. And also network Kanban as well, bring in multiple systems together to actually look at the systemic flow across the whole organisation and optimise accordingly.
And even right now, I'm looking mostly from a business perspective at all the things that we are doing with Kanban, around Kanban, but mostly from a business perspective. And the theory of constraints is a business paradigm, right? The way you can manage any kind of work. We cannot control the waves of uncertainty, but we can learn how to surf. So that's what I'm trying actually to do. Actually, in reality, I cannot surf.
Well, personally, I think that about 98% of the world's problems could be cured or improved with between yoga and Kanban. I just, both have a nice steady flow. We're both trying to do gradual improvement over a revolutionary change, and there's less resistance.
Kanban has a broader application domain than we're still exploring today. Kanban has a very broad application domain in managing knowledge work, and then not only in the more routine part of knowledge work, but especially in the more explorative part of knowledge work.
There are certain things that I wouldn't want to use it for. Like, I wouldn't want to use it while I was on a date, but planning for a date, sure. If there are things where you're not looking up, like you're doing the Pomodoro timer or something, and you want to be focused for 20 minutes, maybe Kanban isn't the thing. But that is the only thing that comes immediately to mind as maybe you wouldn't want to use it here. Because I've seen a variety of different circumstances where if we treat Kanban as a visualization mechanism that allows us to either more effectively align our individual thoughts or work collaboratively more effectively as a team, it's hard to think of things where you couldn't somehow apply those basic ideas.
And I've also done it with a law firm as well. So we had a bunch of lawyers all stood around a card wall every day, which was really surreal, to be honest with you.
Can we bring more attention on prioritization, maybe using cost of delay, and maybe looking at employee satisfaction and job satisfaction, team satisfaction as some key indicators?
Kanban can be used. You have to take the principles and just apply it everywhere. But you have to understand the principles. Let's take an example of the software industry. From my last 4-year experience with large national projects in which large companies are participating, all of them, they are using it from the management side, from the software development, from the software maintenance, support. So this is just the example that it is applicable everywhere. But the basic point is you have to understand the principles.
It was on Kanban Dev Yahoo group by a guy called Mikhail Dubakov posted that agile businesses must kick ass. That's what I mean. Yeah, Kanbanized businesses must kick ass. The mayor nomination, I believe it says a lot, right? Because I always thought that I'm let's say nobody in the community, right? At least I thought so, right? So now it looks like I was wrong.
The thing that's really struck me about the Brickell Key, everyone's got something in common. and that is that they all share the knowledge and the information. They're very keen to share the knowledge.
Honestly, when I heard that I'd been nominated, I wasn't sure that was legitimate. It is kind of a thing up there that other people, folks that I respect and a lot and follow, those are the folks who are, at that level of getting the Brickell Key Award or being nominated for it.
Brickell Key Award to me signified leadership in the community, people who were well respected, people who contributed something significant to the Kanban community. And
it was actually my wife who had seen the email, and she came and woke me up for that. So I saw the email, and so it was not something I expected.
Okay, so I actually I was in bed on a morning, and I picked up my phone, did the normal thing, checking Facebook, checking emails, saw the email, read it a couple of times, and then leaned over to my wife and said, "Have a look at this." She read it, and she looked at me and she just said, "Seriously? They've got an award for sticking post-it notes on a wall."
Because I was using my phone, and on phone I checked the email. Then okay, it was quite big surprise for me. We need to be a little bit more open and try to spread knowledge or information about the community.
My hope and my expectation is that Kanban in knowledge work, as we're exploring it today, will be instrumental in managing uncertainty.
When we're all standing around the board, looking at the work on the board, it puts people on the same side.
Resistance isn't really resistance. It's just friction that exists because there's a lack of common understanding.
We're all looking at the same picture. We're all looking at the data. We're all looking at the problems with dependencies and things not moving. And it takes the us-them out of it.
So the manager's role is suddenly, well, maybe it's about unblocking the work. Maybe it's about facilitating the upstream conversations to help with prioritization and facilitating the work.
Hopefully, at some point in the future, somebody will come and say, well, I looked into your stuff, the way you are do high-level probabilistic planning, and I found a small thing that we can improve and make it even better, right? That will be a real award.